Well, good morning. Good morning to you. Just wait for a few minutes for people to jump on. I know you've gotten out of the routine of expecting me, thinking that I would go live. It's actually been over a month, actually just about a month, since we have been together on these live 10 o'clock um, videos and devotions. And gosh, I've missed being with you, and it's been too long since we have been together every morning at 10. Thank you for your prayers and your well wishes and checking in on me. It's been a rough couple months health wise, but definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel and am feeling much better. So it's exciting to be able to be back and to be with you in this day. You know, a month ago feels like about a decade ago, at least to me. If I think about all that has happened in the last month in our nation and in our world, we are in a really different place today than we were even just 30 days ago, which is just incredible to believe. We were talking as a family the other day, and I said, you know, guys, when you have children and your children are in school and they learn about the year 2020 in history, it's going to take a whole semester to cover everything, and they might only get the first half of the year. There's just been so much unfolding in our world, and it's certainly a time that we need to draw close to God in these difficult days. Well, when I was in junior high, I read the book Black Like Me. And I don't know if you've read it. If you haven't, I would highly recommend you pick it up and read it. It's a quick read. It's an easy read in terms of reading ability. It's a very challenging read in terms of the emotional and mental toll that it takes, but it's worth it. I remember reading it for the first time in junior high, and I wept for days, all through reading it and then even afterwards. And I just remember having my heart deeply stirred about the realities that my Black and brown brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles were facing in this world. And it just really lit the fires of justice in my heart, even from a very young age. And those fires have continued to burn and grow and be expressed in a variety of different ways. Now, when I think about racial issues and racial tensions in the world and what we're seeing unfold on our streets today, I come at it from an even more personal point of view. Some of you might know, but we have a multiracial family that has been built through the blessings of birth children and adopted children. And so I have Black and white children. I have children who are fair and almost to the point of being pale, to our Haitian daughters who are beautiful and Black with deep brown eyes and dark Black hair. And as I have been their mom and as I've walked with them, even through their teen years, there's been a very stark difference between how I've had to parent and in terms of the experiences that my children have had. And it's simply due to the color of their skin. And so as we watch the news stories unfold and hear about things happening in our nation, even in our city, it's very personal for me. And then when I think about it as a pastor, I did not grow up in the Free Methodist Church. I came to the Free Methodist Church early in my ministry after coming out of a denomination that didn't ordain women. And when I first became introduced to the Free Methodist Church and I read about our historic values and where we came from, immediately I just lit up and said, gosh, I found my tribe. Here is a group of people committed to personal and social holiness, committed to the ways of God in terms of justice and righteousness. And immediately I knew that this was my place, this was my group of people, these were my peers, and was so blessed to be able to join together with them. You know, over the next couple weeks, I think I'm going to dig into something that was passed at General Conference last year. If you're not familiar with the Free Methodist Church, every 4 years, the entire United States Conference comes together for something called General Conference. And it's a time of elections and worship and celebration and teaching. It's also a time when new policies or statements get passed. And so last summer, 2019, was our general conference and it was held in Orlando, Florida. I was a reserve delegate, which meant I was kind of a backup to represent Wabash Conference. And while we were down there, the delegates switched out from day to day. And so as a reserve delegate, I took a regular delegate's place and had the opportunity to participate fully and vote on things. One of the days that I was acting as a full delegate and able to vote, we passed something called the Dignity and Worth of Persons. This statement is bold. This statement is what some might even consider quite radical, but this statement is firmly grounded in who God is and who God calls us to be. This statement became part of our book of discipline. And so those of us who are members of the Free Methodist Church, when we say yes to becoming a Free Methodist, we say we not only agree to follow the ways of God and support and contribute to our local church, but that the words of the book of discipline also will guide our lives. And so all of us who are Free Methodists, this is part of who we are. This is who we claim to be. Last night there was a great conversation between the bishops and 5 African-American leaders in the Free Methodist Church, and one of them, Superintendent Michael Traylor, who's a co-superintendent in the River Conference out west, he said, our denomination has long been a denomination that has stood against slavery. We've been abolitionists from the very beginning, from the roots of our history. We were abolitionists standing against slavery. But he said, we have often failed to be a culture who empowers and supports and encourages and promotes and provides opportunity for our Black and brown brothers and sisters. We aren't to be known for what we're against, but we're supposed to be known for what we are for. And now is a perfect time for us to stand firmly on who we are. And this statement about the dignity and worth of all persons is a great place to start. I want to start with the first sentence. We're not even going to get through actually the entire first sentence, just to dig into what it says, so that we really understand who it is that we say we are. And I just want to say a huge caveat, though, that while I'm teaching on this, I don't mean to be any sort of expert. I think now in particular, but always, is it's really important that we listen to the experiences and the input and the life stories and the guidance of our Black and brown brothers and sisters. And listening means that we listen truly, we hear fully, that we don't reject their stories because they make us uncomfortable, that we don't argue them away or minimize them or discredit them, or even more horrible, we don't believe them. As white people operating in this world, we have really different experiences than our Black and brown brothers and sisters. And while I have had a little bit of a window into it, being a mom of 2 Black daughters, I still don't know what it is like to walk the streets, to go into a store and immediately be questioned or be followed or be thought as a threat. I don't understand that. And so the only way that I can truly understand that is to listen to the stories and the experiences of my brothers and sisters who experience that on a daily life, in a daily way, and to truly listen without simply minimizing it or discrediting it. So let me look at the first half of the first sentence. In this dignity and worth of all persons, it says, we are committed to the dignity and worth of all humans, including the unborn, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, color, socioeconomic status, disability, or any other distinction. That's the first half of the first sentence, and it is a bold statement. And it references Acts 10, verses 34 and 35. And so that's where I want to land today. Acts 10, verses 34 and 35. If you go to Acts 10, you see it is the familiar story of Peter being sent to Cornelius, and Cornelius calling for, because God instructed him to, calling for Peter. And there's this divine appointment that God has set up. And it isn't just about Peter and Cornelius getting to know one another. It isn't just about a new friendship that's blossoming. It's about God working in new ways to open up new landscapes. Remember, Jesus sent his disciples out to go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. Well, as soon as you step, actually even on the streets of Jerusalem, but for sure into Samaria, they were going to encounter foreigners. They were going to encounter Gentiles. They were going to encounter people who were not identified as God's chosen people. And Jesus says, go to them. Share the good news with them. They are my children as much as the Jews are. And this is one more example. Jesus sets the stage with this of he ministers to, heals, interacts with Gentiles. In fact, the woman at the well was a Samaritan woman. And I often call her the second evangelist. Now, the first evangelist was Anna in the temple. That Scripture says in Luke 2 that she went and told everybody about Jesus and about who was awaiting his coming. And so the Samaritan woman, a foreigner, a Gentile, someone hated, becomes the second evangelist. And Scripture tells how she went into her entire village, and the whole village comes to Jesus because she boldly proclaims what Jesus told her and about her story, her testimony. We see other places where Jesus healed and ministered and intentionally went to Gentiles. In fact, he tells the centurion, I have not found anyone in all of Israel with a faith as great as yours. And so in Acts 10, we see Peter going to the house of Cornelius, and Scripture tells us that Cornelius was a Gentile, which means that Jews would have been separated from. They had been called to be set apart. And he was a Roman. And so that means he was part of the governing body that would have been oppressing, potentially persecuting, potentially the Jews in that place. And he was an Italian, so he was a foreigner. If there was anything more that could have been added to Cornelius's plate to be more of an outcast, to be more of somebody that Jews would not interact with, to be more of somebody that they would say God's love, God's salvation is not for him, I don't know what else it would have been. So Peter goes to Cornelius's house, and God does an amazing work there. And I want to share with you what it says in Acts 10, verses 34 and 35. It says, then Peter began to speak. This is after he comes in. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and who does what is right. You know the message God sent to the people of Israel, announcing the good news of peace through Jesus Christ, who is Lord of all. You know what has happened throughout the province of Judea, beginning in Galilee, after the baptism that John preached. And then he goes on to explain, but did you hear what he said? I now know that God does not show favoritism, that he accepts from every nation. That's our fundamental starting place as we think about how we are to engage with people. And I just want to remind us that Peter fell back from this. Peter, though he had this vision, though he had this experience with Cornelius, though there was this divine appointment, Peter did not stay on this path. Now, Peter might have fallen back and said, well, I wasn't brought up this way. I didn't grow up around Gentiles. I'm not really comfortable around Gentiles. I don't really have any friends that are Gentiles. But God says, my way is better. I'm calling you to a new way, not necessarily how you were raised, not necessarily what you're comfortable with. I'm calling you to my way. And that's true for us too. I don't know how it is that you were raised. I don't know what sort of experiences you have. I don't know what sort of values were built into you through being raised or your early life experiences, or even right now. But God calls us to recognize that it is God who does not show favoritism. It is God who embraces all nations, all people. And that if we say we follow Jesus, if we call ourselves Christians, racism, prejudice does not belong in our vocabulary. It is a sin, and it is against God's ways. We've got to start there. We have to start there. God calls us to a higher place and a higher way. And we cannot think differently about people because of the color of their skin, because of their socioeconomic status, because of their educational background, because of the languages they do or they do not speak, because of the passport that they carry or don't carry. That's where we have to start. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how God has made us all into the Imago Dei, and I'm going to challenge something that has been just in the water of Christianity about the curse of Ham. And we just need to stand up prophetically and speak against that which exists in our society and that which exists in our churches, to say this is not who we are called to be. This is not who God calls us to be. That we choose a better way. And it's better because it's who God is and who God calls us to be. Well, that's probably a lot. I don't know how long I've gone, but probably too long. I just want to mention two other quick things. We will be starting a book club for West Morris Church, and everybody's invited, whether you're part of West Morris Church or not. We're going to read a book, not sure which one, but something from a Black or a brown author, and just come together and really talk about things together and learn and grow and wrestle together. And then I also want to invite you to a discipleship class that I'm going to be teaching. It's going to start next Sunday, so Sunday, June 14th, and it's going to run for 6 weeks, Sunday night at 7 o'clock on Zoom. And for 6 weeks, we are going to practice some discipleship tools and techniques. And there's a twofold reason for this. First, we're going to work together to grow in our own discipleship, to grow closer to Jesus, to be more like Jesus. And then secondly, those tools and techniques that we are going to practice ourselves together, those tools and techniques are then something you can take as you go and work with other people to share and to walk with them in their discipleship journey. So it's a twofold approach to discipleship. So we really would love to have you on there. I'll put some information about how to sign up for that class. There's no cost or anything, and you don't really need to sign up, but it just will help me kind of plan ahead of time for how many people will be participating. So I'd encourage you to do that. Well, God bless you. It's great to be back with you. Let's see, jump on and see who's here. Oh, Beth, good to see you. Donna, Patricia, awesome. Scott, good morning. Good to see all of you guys again. So hopefully I'll be back into the routine of being able to come on at 10 o'clock every morning, and we are just going to walk our way through the dignity and worth of all persons. This is foundational to who we are. It comes right out of Scripture, and I think it's a great starting place as we encounter and engage the world in which we find ourselves. God bless you. May He encourage you and give you peace and comfort in these days. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.